Hello, this is Craig Dees with Cloud Action, welcoming you today to our session on how to integrate Remedyforce and Microsoft System Center Operations Manager and System Center Orchestrator. I'm pleased to see that we've got a diverse group of attendees that include existing customers, some new companies, several partners, as well as a few competitors, and everyone's welcome. And it's good to know that the Action Hub's message of integration made easy is resonating. In addition to our SCOM Scorch demo today, we are also going to be hearing from Joe Camacho and Jeff Ball from our customer Cadillac Fairview, who are going to share some insights into how the integration is working for them. Before we introduce the first speaker, and it looks like people are still signing in to the webinar, let's go over a couple of housekeeping items. All the phones, attendee phones, are going to be on mute. We are, of course, encouraging questions from attendees. And if you look over to your right, there's an attendee console or dashboard that has a question pane. That's where you would submit questions to us. And we're going to do our best to answer all of the questions today. If not, we promise we'll respond by email as soon as possible. And with that, I'd like to introduce Samir Kumar. Samir is president of Cloud Action, which he co-founded in July of 2014. And in about 2 years, Cloud Action has grown to be one of the most successful BMC Remedyforce partners in the U.S. with more than 175 Remedyforce implementations. Samir has more than 20 years of IT services experience, including stints at IBM and Tata Consultancy Services. And with that, I would like to hand the floor over to Samir. Samir?
Thank you, Craig Dees. Welcome, everybody. We're going to be having a really great session today. We are here with our customer, Cadillac, and our chief architect, Bruce Morgan, who's going to take you into the real demo today. So as a part of the session, what you guys going to learn today, if you have Remedyforce and you're trying to expand the uses of your Remedyforce beyond what it is, then it's a great session for you. If you're thinking about Remedyforce and how Microsoft can work together to deliver higher value, it's a perfect opportunity. What we are going to show today, that when you have a monitoring tool like Microsoft SCOM and it's running on your infrastructures, find alerts. When the alert happens, how Remedyforce will capture those alerts, create an incident, assign it to the right technician with the right priority, and get the right attention to get attended those issues. We're going to do it two ways. If you are on SCOM, get a ticket. We fix on SCOM, it also communicates on the Remedyforce. If you make a changes on Remedyforce, then it communicates back to SCOM. So we're going to be doing that today. One of the use case which Cadillac is going to talk about, that they needed to manage not only the IT help desk, but IT infrastructures, outages, degradations from Remedyforce console in itself. So you're going to see that. Definitely having all that together, being managed proactively, the result is for customer that uptime of the system is really up, and the customer satisfaction went up, especially when you are running a revenue-driven system, and that needs to be up in today's world. Other than that, we are also going to show some extended use case today, how to automate Active Directory through the Remedyforce SRM. So when you get new employee, when the employee get onboarded, how are we going to automate all the way for the HR logistic portion of it? If you have other HR system, how the HR system can integrate with Remedyforce, and from Remedyforce, it can go all the way to Scorch and execute the request. And also, if you get a time, we can do the termination piece. But today's we focus on some of the the use case. Having said that, I'm going to introduce Joe Camacho and Jeff Ball from our customer Cadillac Fairview. They will talk about who is Cadillac Fairview, what they do, and also will take us to the next few of the use case they are using Action Hub to do that. So welcome, Joe and Jeff.
Thanks very much. This is Jeff Ball speaking from Cadillac Fairview. I'm one of the DBAs here and also a SCOM administrator. So just a little bit about our company. We have properties valued at about 29 billion, so it's a fairly large company. 38 million square feet of leasable space and 72 properties in Canada, including ones that you may or may not have heard of, depending where you're located. We own the TD Centre, Toronto Dominion Centre here in Toronto, the Eaton Centre, Pacific Centre in Vancouver, Chinook Centre, and a number of others. Basically all the big and best malls in Canada. And we also own a number of properties as well in Brazil, Colombia, and Mexico that we're expanding into. And some in the States as well. So that's basically our business is real estate development and best-in-class retail mixed-use properties in North America. And yeah, we do leasing as well. So we have a number of things on the go. But the reason why we contacted Cloud Action was, well, if we go to the next slide here, we had an effective system monitoring tool, which is SCOM, and we had a good incident management system, which is RemedyForce. The problem was that the two systems were not integrated. So any issues identified by SCOM had to be manually entered into RemedyForce by our IT service desk team. So obviously you can imagine there's lag involved, there's human error involved, not very efficient. And also anytime an incident was closed in RemedyForce, if the issue was resolved, if the corresponding alert in SCOM was a rule, we had to manually close it within SCOM. So we as administrators had to manually close them. So more overhead for us. And just not very reliable system. So again, we engaged Cloud Action with the objective of integrating SCOM and RemedyForce. And Cloud Action advised this could be accomplished using customized runbooks within System Orchestrator. And we collaborated, and after some customization and the final implementation, we're actually able to achieve our integration objectives. And so what that looks like now is basically, now that SCOM's fully integrated with RemedyForce, we no longer have to worry about service desk manually creating tickets, because the tickets are automatically created based on our specifications of which alerts we want to pass down to RemedyForce. And further to that, when an issue is resolved by a technician, the ticket will either automatically close itself if it's a monitor, a SCOM alert monitor. And when the SCOM has identified the issue to be resolved, okay, so that's the monitor. And for the rule, those of you know about SCOM, there's two types of alerts. So for the rule alerts, when the technician closes them in RemedyForce, there's that two-way communication happening, so it'll automatically close that corresponding rule alert in SCOM. So a lot of the manual work was effectively eliminated, and that's the biggest factor we found, is that it saves a lot of overhead that we had before. And we've had it in production for a number of weeks now, and it's been going quite well. And yeah, that's basically it in a nutshell.
Okay, thank you very much. Again, I'm glad that the solution we put together is working great for Cadillac Fairview today. And you guys are going to see the demo as we move forward with the session. What I'm going to take, maybe take, I would say, a couple of minutes to introduce Action Hub in a broader view. So again, when we co-founded this 2 years ago, we saw Remedyforce is one of the top selling IT service management solution in the marketplace, built on a Salesforce platform. But customer was asking more out of their investment. So that's how we came up with this Action Hub ideas. Now Action Hub across the board, customer is using for different purposes, and this particular slide demonstrates how it is being used. The few examples we have, one of the big federal agencies using it when they monitor their network layers or the cloud layers using SolarWinds and Splunk or some BMC TrueSight or Microsoft SCOM. We could able to bring those alerts and have from Remedyforce side to maintain and manage the issues going on their infrastructures. On the IT app dev side, if the customer is using Jira and Rally, Action Hub is enabling it both ways. So let's say you are in a Remedyforce and get a request through SRM to add new functionality on your existing software. Then the request gets approved. Remedyforce goes to Jira, to engineering team to make things happen. We can do all the real time through Action Hub. When it comes to the sales side, if you're using Sales Cloud or a Service Cloud, in a Sales Cloud, if you're a software company, and as a sales guy, you need some help on the IT side, being on a Sales Cloud, you can just click the button, Action Hub will take that, put the request on a BNC Remedyforce. The point I'm making here is this, the way this Action Hub is built, not for just one use case, it is more like a platform which can enable all the way to the HR, facilities, IT, customer service, and your sales organization. The second slide over here talks about a little bit of our, the Action Hub as a platform. So Action Hub is 100% built on Salesforce One platform as native. It can work anything you want to connect on a Salesforce platform. Action Hub can do the job. And today's use cases, we are morely focused on Remedyforce. And what we have done over a period of time, we have built some of the connectors between Remedyforce to Jira, to SCOM, to Service Cloud, SolarWinds, even for outsourcing environment where we have seen people use ServiceNow, we could able to do that through our platform. Before we go to the technical session, which Bruce is going to show in a few minutes from now, today's solution we're going to see as a part of architecture. You will see that what you need to do, pretty simple. Our connector is ready to go. You just build a port forwarding rules on a Escort server. As soon as that is done, our Action Hub starts communicating through your open up port. Once the SCOM alerts happen, it communicates to our web services, Action Hub web services through Scorch, and you can set up as much as rules you want to set up on Action Hub UI. You will see in just 30 seconds from now, and you can make changes real time. In fact, I was in a call with a customer, pretty much on the northwest side, customers. It's in a state side. I asked the question, and they said, well, they could able to make the changes and enable their needs in 30 minutes. They just made the changes on the Remedyforce SRM side. They went to the Action Hub UI. They made the rule changes. Before even they call us, they were in production. And they gave me the answer that it used to take them maybe a few weeks to do some coding versus just 30 minutes. So I'll just gonna introduce Bruce Morgan here. Bruce Morgan is our chief architect. He is the brain behind Action Hub, and let's Bruce Morgan to show us what he got for the day.
All right, thank you, Samir. Like you said, I am Bruce Morgan, Chief Architect at Cloud Action, and spent a lot of time in this. This has been one of my thrills working on this project. One of my core objectives in everything I do is to get the development done and then move on to the next new project. And this is what the focus of Action Hub was, so that we could set up a system that that our clients and customers could use, make modifications, improve the systems without having to come back to us to talk about more custom development services, like Samir said. We can allow our customers to do the repetitive work of making the modifications and improvements while we go off and solve brand new problems for them, things that actually need creative solutions. So what I'll do is I'm going to step through a couple of use cases, like Samir said. The first one is going to be how we can configure rules, have rules configured that will respond to SCUM alerts. In this case, we're going to use a simulated event. I'm actually going to turn off a web service, a website that SCUM will pick up, send that information over to Action Hub. Action Hub will create an incident, and then when we restart the service, it will close that incident based on that new event as the event's cleared off. And then after that, we'll go into some discussion. I'll show the configuration of a rule for integrating with Active Directory through the orchestration, through System Center Orchestrator. So if we'll get started, I will show you the beginning of all the rules in Action Hub. Start with a connector. In this case, we built a connector for the orchestrator, simply called orchestrator. It's just very basic information. Names, some identifying information. The connector itself is made aware of the SCUM. We call it the Scorch Web Services URL here. It's simply a web service. The username, domain and username of a user who can access that server, and their password. And that's pretty much all there is to configuring a connection. Now, inside of Action Hub, we also configure business rules, which are the logic that we apply against events. Bring over to the rules. And the rules are fired from events that happen inside of Action Hub. They then evaluate the conditions of the data that comes in, and depending on whether they match that data, it goes out and executes actions. You see we have quite a few listed here. Most of these are inactive, but we do have two that are pre-configured for the SCUM alert. We will build the Active Directory integration live. These are very, very simple. So
this is a great example, Bruce, here that I spoke to on the PowerPoint, the 360 views of everything you can do. So once you have, let's say, SCOM, you have Jira, you have Service Cloud, you have Sales Cloud, you have Rally, whatever you need, this can be your hub. This can be your integration platform to do all of the above. We have quite a few rules built. All of these guys are disabled at this point because we're going to focus on doing the SCOM monitoring, and then he's going to build real-time rules in front of you here. So as you move on with your integration needs, you don't need any other platform, anything like that. Just take the rules, enable the rules, and you're good to go. So again, go ahead, Bruce, and start show them what your precondition rule looks like.
Okay, sure. Yeah, and these are also they're connection agnostic. When we're building these rules, Action Hub doesn't really care where the data came from. It comes in, it sees it all the same. Therefore, the configuration is the same regardless of the connection. And I'll show you that real quick. So we actually have two rules set up here. One is to create the incident when the SCOM alert first comes in, and we have one to close the alert. So let's take a look at the create incident first. Now, as this is loading, what you'll see is that we have a fairly narrative way of looking at the way the rules are configured. Let's finish loading. All right, yeah, sure. So so we've given it a name, create incident. What we're doing is we're saying that when an event in Orchestrator occurs, we're going to execute this rule on Orchestrator when this is basically an object that comes in from the Orchestrator. This is actually the name of a runbook. The orchestrator sends the runbook name, which tells us exactly which process is coming in from orchestrator. The connection itself, the orchestrator connector, the adapter that sits in the background, when we gave it the information for the login, it's able to go out from here and dynamically grab all of the runbooks that are configured inside of the SCOM server itself. So we actually dynamically get these. Again, it's a matter of reducing the typing as much as possible so that we can reduce the chance of errors. So in this case, we have the create incident, which is the name of a runbook. So we'll go ahead and close that, just let it save it. So it's when it's created and updated. Now this one has no conditions because we know that if this create incident comes in, we know what we're going to do. We're going to take some information from the event itself, and we're going to set that up as an incident. So we're going to fill in the description based on what comes in from SCOM, template name, and these are fields on the incident itself. So this is the incident description, the template name, since we want to apply a template, short description, and we're actually, in this case, we're looking up a configuration item out of the CMDB. So we're actually going to link this to a CMDB item. If that CMDB item matches the one that comes in from SCOM, matches one that we already have in our database. Now our response mappings, that's the information that we're going to send back to SCOM as a response. And a single transaction, when it sends an event, we turn around and send the information right back to it after the incident's created. Record ID is the unique identifier on a Salesforce record, for example, and number would be the incident number. Now, very similar on the close incident. Let's take a look at that. It's almost an identical rule, just slightly less information since not as much is needed, and I just clicked the wrong one. My apologies. What if this opens quickly? If not, we'll just hop on over and I'll give you the demonstration. Yeah, so you can see it's very similar, just a little bit trimmed down. Not as much data needs to be passed back and forth. We just need some identifying information for the status and the record ID to tell it which Salesforce record, in this case Remedyforce record, which incident we're going to update. All right, so I'll skip over and actually make this thing happen now. Like I said, the way we're going to do this, I am going to simulate an outage by closing a web service. We'll stop the web service. In this case, we're monitoring this website called Test Website. I'll go into Manage. I'll tell it to stop. Now, while that's stopping, what will happen in the background is that every once in a while, System Center Operations Manager, this one, will reach out. It'll do a query for the monitor, or actually it'll run the monitor, which actually goes out and tests that web service to see if it's still alive. It will query the database to make sure that it hasn't already trapped that particular event. If it comes back and that one hasn't been trapped, it will, at that point, send off a request to Action Hub. The request to Action Hub is the execution of a program that sends it over to Action Hub and receives our response back. Now, if you notice, we still haven't gotten the trap yet. The alert hasn't been generated because it hasn't gone out and done its polling. On Operations Manager, that can sometimes take up to 60 seconds between polling cycles. So there we go. Now you see that we do have one that's has appeared. So what we'll do is we'll go back over to Remedyforce, and in the Remedyforce console, I'm looking at the incident. So if I refresh, we see that we do have incident number 78 that was created. If I open that up, take a look inside, you can see that we did get our information from the description. We got our short description, which is the name of the alert that came in. It set our category to SCOM alert. Our template got set. All of the information that we configured in that rule actually happened. And notice right now our status is to opened. Now the great thing about this is that we didn't have to have a user looking over at the SCOM control panel, the monitoring that system itself. So these people are already working in Remedyforce, so they're keeping an eye on this list anyway, and this would have popped up as it refreshed or as they came back in and refreshed manually. But the point is they can control all this and monitor this from one location now. The same data, since it's in Salesforce, is also available for reporting. All right, so now to
Yeah, and that's another point I want to make here is since let's say you are monitoring some high critical application, revenue generation applications, you can change the urgency. That's the good thing, so that you know what one you need to attend first. And the second, you can also enable the service level agreement functionality on top of it, so that if you know that the business app, which is very, very critical to your business, and if it goes down, it kind of hurts everybody, you can put some higher different definitions of the service level agreement and the right level of escalation, so that you put the right resource to get the issues fixed before it gets too late. So there are a lot more you can do once you have the real-time integrations with your monitoring tool and Remedyforce in place. Bruce, go ahead, please.
All right, thank you. Yeah, sure. And we've got this set up so that we can set these specific things from the template. Now, as Samir said, it gives you a great place to do single point management of your SLAs. People are familiar with Remedyforce know that the SLA targets are here. Again, great visibility, all in one location. A single location for communication, because the notifications will also be sent out. Critical issue happens, then we can immediately blast out those notifications and get the tech's attentions to get it fixed. So let me slip back over here. We're gonna fix the state of the website. I'll just go ahead and restart it, which will be the event. There we go. Slowly it comes up. Now that's going to be the event that clears the alert. So now we have the same process going on in the background. Get the right window open. Yeah, so SCOM is now doing its polling. It's actually gone into a crisis mode, so it's been polling a lot faster. But the same process is going on. It's got a timer. It sits in the background, occasionally pings that web service to see if it's back up. Now, when it does get a response, and this can take just a little while because the service itself takes a while to start up and then give the response back when it gets pinged by the SCOM monitor. So it might go a couple of times. We might get a couple of more success markers, or this just means it's a success and that it did the polling, not that it got a success response back from the service. But it'll go out and reach for it a few times. Let's back over here. Now also, again, great information here. We've got it all in one place. Routing can happen here. It's also possible, something we don't have on this one, but it's possible to set the owner to a specific user based on the template. You can also set the client. You can have a client look up based on the asset that's assigned to the ticket, based on where the event was generated, the alert was generated. You can actually have it go out and be assigned to the client, which may be the business owner or the tech owner of that particular network node. So I'm going to reload this and see if we have done. Yes, so the SCOM has now picked up that the alert's been cleared. It sent out the notification to Action Hub, and Action Hub has closed this incident. So we now have a complete cycle from open to close.
And that's let's put this value perspective, which Cadillac was talking before, that if you're just setting up things on SCOM, you had an alert, you fix the alert, and then all the Remedyforce status changes. So now your SLA stops. Everybody is happy. So in their case, customer satisfaction has gone up, uptime gone up, and they don't need to enter the information in a different system. It's all one system, one single source of truth, managing all over the map. So that's what we wanted to show you, that it does a two-way communications real time. As soon as it happens, in this case SCOM, the status pops up right here. Go ahead, Bruce.
Sure. Okay. Now, this one, that use case is taken care of. So what we'll do now is I'm going to go over and show you how we actually configure a rule that starts the process from the other side. This one will be one that starts from inside a service request in Remedyforce that will trigger changes through the orchestration management of Scorch. In this case, what we're going to do is responds to a service request to onboard a new employee by creating an Active Directory user. That's a rather simplified case, but you'll see it does end up sending the information over, and we do have that ability to initiate communication from the Remedyforce side also. Is to start this off, we click the Create New Rule button. And like I said earlier, we get this dynamic entry of data. For this one, Salesforce Adapter, Remedy4 sits on top of Salesforce Custom Objects. So what we want to do is look at a Salesforce object. For service requests, what that one actually sits on top of is a custom Remedy4 object, and there are a lot of them. This also automatically populated as we chose that connector. So any changes that you make to add new objects or new fields, they'll show up immediately in this list. So the service request is an incident behind the scenes. So that's the object that we want to monitor. Now, we don't want it to happen every time a Salesforce incident is created or updated. We want these conditions to be met. So the first one that we want to be met is that we're looking for an approval. We only want this to happen when a service request for an onboarding is approved. So that means that we want that to equal true. I did have to type a little bit there, but that's about as much as it's going to be other than the names. Now the other thing we want to know is we want to only make this happen or only allow this to happen at the moment it gets approved. Now one of the things we can do is monitor the transactional data in many of our connectors. When they're available through the connector itself, then we can make comparisons. So what we'll do here is we want to know that the approved was true and that it didn't used to be true. The way we do that, we go into our expression builder and we have our list of fields from the incident itself, and notice we have the approved right here, but we also have this little back symbol. When I click on that, it actually enters the symbol that tells Action Hub to look for the old approved value. So I'll click OK there. Now, the other thing I want to know is I don't want to run this on every service request, so I want to look for the service request title, and I only want to run that on service request where the title is Employee Onboarding, and that is all for the conditions. Yep, that looks good. Now, we'll add the single action that we need, which is to actually tell Orchestrator to create this Active Directory user. And I just realized I need to do this up here. Okay, there we go. Got a name for it. And we want to do this in the Orchestrator connector. Now again, we get this automatically populated as it went out and grabbed the available runbooks. In this case, the runbook that we want to execute is the provision user. So I'll select that one. Now again, when it does that, we actually get some available parameters that are built into that runbook. So these are the required fields. Now I'm going to set first name as the parameter, and I want to pull that from the service request's request first name. Add another mapping. I want to set the last name to the request last name. Request last name. There we go. One more. We're going to set the groups to the request department, just because that's how this happens to be set up inside of the Remedy4 service request right now. And that's pretty much all we need for the rule. I'll simply click Save. I want to make sure it's activated. So click Save. We have a rule saved successfully, and it's going to refresh itself to make sure it has all the latest and greatest data. All right, so expand that out just because I like seeing all of it in front of me. All right, now what we should be able to do now is submit a service request and see how this all reacts. So what I have over in Internet Explorer, I'm actually logged in as another user so that I can have one submit a request that'll have an approval on it. So I'll go into the employee onboarding and I'll give it a simple name. Robert Evans, and he is going to be a member of the IT department. So I'll click Submit. Go ahead and stay on this page. That's all right. Won't be doing anything else there, but we can stay there. Now, back over on the console again in the Remedy4 console. Close instance. I actually want to take a look at the service request view now. And I have service request 79. Has the information that our demo user put in. And there's the service request. Now, the only thing that needs to happen now is that I need to approve it. So it's sitting here waiting for an approval. I will do a simple approval. And sorry, I can't help it. I have to spell that correctly. Click Approve. And we come back to the snapshot of the record. Okay, let me close that out. That part's done. It'll refresh. Now shows it's approved here. If I go back over to the main form and do a reload to refresh the data, you notice our checkbox went from unchecked to checked, and that was one of our conditions. Our other one was that we would go to, or we'd fire when the request definition is employee onboarding. So we have met our conditions. Now, if we head over to, if we head back over here to our server, bring up our Active Directory users. Let's see. Notice right now we have a Robert Paulson, but no Evans. So I will refresh. Oh, I'm sorry, it wasn't his name, was it? Let me flip back over real quick, and we'll find out that his name was, well, it was Robert Evans. Okay, my apologies. So yeah, there he is right there. So yeah, Robert Evans has appeared. He's now in the Active Directory users list. And if I take a look at his properties, we'll go to member of, and you'll notice he's default member of domain users, but he's also been assigned to the IT group. So at that point, we have completed that whole process. We just created a rule that responded to a service request that was then resulted in an orchestration activity of creating that user and assigning them to the group. So at that point, we have shown the full two-way communication between the two systems using Action Hub and just the two connectors, the native Salesforce connector and the orchestration connector. So,
all right. Thank you very much, Bruce. So, Craig, so great. Again, it was a pretty good session from start to finish. What now I'm going to do, I think there are some questions popping up. So we'll do some question session as we speak, and that will kind of complete the deal. So what I'm going to do, so we are done with the technical session as we speak. I'm going to say that what I believe Craig has already said, who is Cloud Action? We started 2 years ago with 3 folks. We have 175 plus customers. We have 10 plus connectors, and we do one thing, Salesforce platform, ISV partner, and the consulting, and we implement Remedyforce, and the integration is kind of our focus. Now, let's go to the QA session. We got some question here. We got one for Cadillac, and the question is, were you a part of decision-making process in evaluating Action Hub? Question for you, Joe, as we speak.
Hi, this is Jeff from Cadillac Fairview. Yes, we were part of the decision-making process. I guess the main reason why we chose Cloud Action over other vendors mainly is because other vendors were willing to work with us and provide a solution, but it would be something that they'd have to basically write from scratch. And really, we just weren't prepared to be the first customer, if you will, to test out whatever solution they code. We wanted a vendor that had an infrastructure already built that's had the experience working with both SCOM and Remedyforce integration. And Cloud Actions seemed to have everything we were looking for, so that was the main reason why we went with them.
Jeff, thank you very much. So that reminds one of our differentiator that we are planning to be giving customer or prospect a 1/4-inch hole, not just a 1/4-inch drill. You can buy a drill, then you have to learn how to make a hole. We just deliver the use case, the solution right there. Well, I got one question now for Bruce Morgan. The question is, when you set up the rule and and then business condition changes and you have to change the rule, what would be the best practice? What would you suggest to change the rule?
Well, our recommendation, let me pop one open real quick. I'll just grab the first one. Our recommendation is to actually not delete anything, which is actually an old motto I've run by. The best way is to mark it inactive, and then you can use our copy button. Typically, the changes only involve, usually the situation is that the conditions have changed. Like, for example, they take one service request, they've now decided that that actually needs to be 2 processes, so they split it out into 2 service requests. So it's possible to make a copy and just make a new modification to include the second one. The other common issue that comes up is that in the action itself, as more users come in and start realizing the power of this, they start realizing they also can include their data in these actions that are already taking place. So they'll want to add to the field mappings. Now, typically with a field mapping edition, we don't necessarily recommend that you make a copy of the rule. You can just take the one that's there and add to it as you go. And also they make use of the functionality that we have built in with our custom functions. There's also the ability to add custom adapters that are built by third parties, even by our clients. That's an extensible system where you can add your own, basically your own adapters, build your own adapters. So those also, that can get just incredibly complex on how those can be set up.
Okay, thank you, Bruce. I have another question for Jeff on a Cadillac side. So since you got Action Hub, you're using it, what area of your daily work has been affected, the results? And if so, can you quantify the impact and the positive impact and the overall experience as you're using it for a few months, I believe?
Yeah, this is Jeff here. So I would say the most significant area of work affected by this integration is mainly our service desk team. They don't have to enter these things manually anymore because it's all automatically done through this Cloud Action solution. So it's really completely automated our whole system, which has really yielded probably hundreds of man hours and eliminated human error, which is another factor. Sometimes we have to wait as well for them to manually enter these incidents, and the issue could be up to a day old or so. I would say those are the main things that we've yielded that have been of great benefit.
Thank you, Jeff, and I'm very pleased to hear that positive impact. This is maybe the last question because we are on top of the hours here. Are you considering any other integrations since you got a platform, you're seeing the values in future? Do you have any other roadmap as a part of your integration needs?
Yeah, actually, aside from SCOM, we also use SolarWinds. We just started implementing it not too long ago to monitor mainly our network infrastructure. We found SCOM wasn't quite a robust solution as SolarWinds for that front. And so we're actually planning to engage with Cloud Action again because we want it similarly how SCOM integrates with Remedy-Force. We want SolarWinds to do the same.
Thank you very much, Jeff. And we're on the top of the hours. We have a lot more questions to go, but we respect everybody's time. So, Craig, I'll hand it over to you to close this great technical session we have so far.
All right. Thank you, Samir and Jeff and Bruce. We thank all of you who stayed with us for our webinar, our technical session, and we'll be having another one in August, and we will send an email out to let you know what the subject matter is on that one as well. And with that, I will conclude the today's session. Thanks.